What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 review of The Bad Batch. I am live here early in the morning. This is the first morning stream that we've done on this channel. I'm not going to be available in the afternoon because of all of the 4th of July activities that we have going on this weekend. I'm just not going to be able to make it, which is why I'm doing this in the morning. So welcome all for joining. Thank you. I see Ducky Momo in the chat and Star Wars Santa made it. Appreciate you all for joining. But yeah, man, this is a good episode. I'd give it about a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, which is really good in my book. See a lot of people calling it filler. I wouldn't say it's filler, but it is definitely another mission episode. But the mission is important, and that's the thing. That's the key. The importance of the mission. As I've been saying on these reviews, this show seems to be setting up a lot of the rebellion in the early stages, the early years, the Empire. I think we will get more connections to Andor. I think we will see possibly Saw Gerrera again before the end of this season. I think we'll get a mention of the Partisans. I think we will see them officially formed by the end of this season. And I think the Bad Batch will become part of that partisan group. Possibly. That's part of my prediction. That's what I feel like this episode kind of sort of sets up, because we see the Bad Batch going to help separatists. And we know that the Alliance is not only made up of former Republic worlds, but also separatist worlds. Like, these are all supporters from both sides of the Clone Wars coming together to oppose the Empire. And we're seeing a lot of that put in motion. Who else we got in the chat? What's up, fam? JBM's in the chat, man. See you later tonight or probably tomorrow. Who else we got? Spencer, what's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, story I can see a 7, but all the detail work on the scene and scoop bumps it up to an 8 or 8.5. Yeah, I can, like, an 8 isn't out of the realm of realism, in my opinion. Like, it's an enjoyable episode. Like, I haven't seen an episode of this show that I haven't enjoyed. I've enjoyed every single episode that they've had. There are episodes that I've enjoyed more, but none of these episodes have been bad, in my opinion. This is definitely not a bad episode. Like I said, you can see the framework and the groundwork that they're laying for this show to be much bigger in scale. It reminds me of Rebels. If you all remember, like, around season 1 of Rebels, it was such a small scale, and that show had a smaller budget than this does. But this reminds me of that, like how season 1 of Rebels was real small. You stuck with the Ghost crew. They stayed on Lothal. A lot of that was due to budget restraints, but you know, as the show saw success and it continued to grow in popularity, like, you saw it expand until it became a show about the Rebel Alliance in whole. And I think that this is going to do the same thing. But, you know, the Rebel Alliance, this is way too early for the Alliance to be formed per se, but we will see more cells pop up. The Partisans, I feel like, are going to be a big role. That's why we saw Saw Gerrera in the first episode. All of that is important. setting up a lot of things. And then we know from Fallen Order, which is, closer timeline wise to this show, we know that the Partisans were the largest group of rebels at this time in the galaxy. And I think that the Bad Batch, and also too, them going to Braca, I think all of it is kind of setting up, along with us seeing Saw Gerrera, that it's setting up us seeing more of the Partisans. And I think the Bad Batch, with what we know about the Partisans and how they operate, it seems like the Bad Batch would be a great fit for how Saw Gerrera and his Partisans operate and how they do things. And then, that'll give us an opportunity to see Rex, because I think Rex would be more involved with the Saw Gerrera and the Partisans more so than with Bail Organa and his rebel cells. Or not really, what is it? Well, Bail is a big supporter, he's a big proponent, but there was that division hinted at in Rogue One as well as in Rebels, that the Partisans and the Greater Alliance didn't see eye to eye. They didn't operate in the same capacity, and I think that we'll see that trend continue. I think a lot of that will be explained, and this show can offer a platform to kind of sort of showcase that, or illuminate that a little bit more. Story should be the highlight over animation, but that was really well done artwork. But yeah, no, like the cinematography in this show has been very strong. Like this is the best animated show to date for Star Wars, in my opinion. Like, just overall, the lessons that they've learned and the proper changes that they made to the Clone Wars as well as in Rebels, have really helped the direction for this show. And we're seeing, and also Dave Filoni and the team working more so closely with the live action, because I'm pretty sure with his involvement in some of the live action properties, the sequel trilogies, as well as, well, at least him being on set with the sequel trilogies, and then his involvement with The Mandalorian, I'm pretty sure he's probably brought in some of his animation team to sit in on some of the production meetings, or at least come on set for them shooting season 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian, just so they get some exposure to how live action works, so some of that can translate over into the animated side. I think in my opinion, the Saw Gerrera is a better fit. Like, we saw that interaction that Saw had with Hunter in episode 1. I think that's going to sit with Hunter. I think that's going to be something that resonates with Hunter, and whatever Hunter does and agrees with, he's kind of like Captain America in that regard, right? Like, whatever he says and does is what the team is going to do. So if he feels like the best move for them is to work with Saw Gerrera and the Partisans, then that's what they're going to do. No questions asked. They trust him in that regard, in that capacity. And with Omega showcasing her strategic prowess in this episode on full display, her ability to strategize is going to be important to the Partisans. Maybe that's what enables the early Rebel Alliance to let's say navigate this galaxy while the Empire is hounding them. Like, maybe her strategic expertise is what allows the early Rebel cells to prosper and gain a foothold in the galaxy. I don't know, all possibilities, speculation at this point. But also something key that happens in this episode is that she paid off their debt to Sid. So they're no longer indebted to Sid. They don't have to work for her any longer. At least that's what it's implied. I think in the next episode, we will be moving on from Sid. I think that it's possible that they could reach out to Rex or Saw Gerrera and say, hey, thought about what you said, because Rex did tell them that if they ever change their mind, just, how to reach me. And it's not that they necessarily wanted to continue to work for Sid, but that they didn't have any other choice at that point. So now they have options. I can see, them going to Rex, who I believe is working with Saw Gerrera at the moment. I think that's who he's helping. I think we are lessening the chance of seeing Ahsoka in this season. I don't think that's going to happen at all. If we see Ahsoka, it'll be in a later season, and I don't think we'll see us. I would hope that we don't see Rex and Ahsoka interact with one another when we do, or if we do see Ahsoka at some point. But what else happened? So you got the former senators, and now this could also be tying into the delegation of 200 or 2000 delegation 2000. Yes, 2000. I was making sure, double checking. I don't know why I said 200, but this could tie into the delegation 2000 in some capacity. Certain senators, well, we know that the alliance leadership is comprised of the imperial senators who were opposed to the rule of the empire, and former senators as well, former senators of the republic, various people, various figures that are very important to the galaxy and to certain sectors of space and to certain systems that were sympathetic to the rebellion and to their cause and to the restoration of democracy and the republic in the galaxy. We also got to see, I think we are going to see some connections to Andor, because I don't know if I've said this on this show, but I have talked about how I was surprised with how the production of Andor seemed to be on the scale or same, as the movies. Like when they showed that sizzle reel, what was it, a year ago now, 2 years? And they showed some of the behind the scenes for Andor. Like if you look at the costumes and the production and the sets and this is a really high budget property. Like it'd probably be more expensive than the Mandalorian. But I think a lot of that is going to be less. I think initially the show was marketed as a prequel to Rogue One, but now it seems to be more of a, no, this is going to set up, this is going to show the early days of the rebellion. So that's way more in depth than a prequel to Rogue One, if you know what I'm saying. Agree with you on the Ahsoka prediction. I don't think it'll happen. Yeah, it doesn't seem realistic at this point. And I think I've heard 14 episodes and 16 episodes in this season, and with how the story has been developing, it doesn't seem realistic that she will be a likely character to appear in this season. Although I believe it is definitely safe to say that we are going to get a couple more seasons of this show, just with how they've paced this show and how the plot has developed and how it's slowly growing. The story is, at least, to be a little bit bigger than just this crew, this team of the Bad Batch. It's going to be more encompassing of other characters. Like I said, the inclusion of Saw Gerrera is very important. The inclusion of Rex is very important. Even the inclusion of Baraka and Kanan, or Caleb at this point in time, is important. Like they're seeds, you know what I'm saying? Like all of those pay off in the end. If we look at the Clone Wars and you look at Rebels, any character or appearance that has been made in any of those shows ultimately has a payoff, even if it's not immediately. They eventually circle back to it, and it becomes important later down the road. And I think that this is going to be no different. Let me see. All right, what are we on? 15 minutes in. Any questions, man? I think I've covered at least what I want to talk about with this episode. It's not really it was a pretty straightforward episode, so it's not too much to speculate on, but it does seem to set up a lot, at least from my interpretation, how I watched it and what I noticed about the episode, within these, you know, subtle details, the subtle references. You know, Omega's strategic prowess is very telling of her importance to not only this series but to Star Wars moving forward, because, you know, with her age and how young she is, we know that she's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. She's going to be around. She may be integral to what stories they have planned in this time period. I think that we will see some more connections between Andor, possibly Kenobi, and I believe I can totally see now Fallen Order and, you know, the subsequent sequels that follow that game. All of these stories that take place in this time period, I feel like will have some sort of connection to one another. The writer for Fallen Order being involved in this show is important because I'm pretty sure he's also involved in the sequels to Fallen Order. So if there are any connections to be made between the Bad Batch and the sequel to Fallen Order, I think he's going to be shepherding that. So, you know, I think it's cool because, you know, we know that this is how, we don't have to speculate on the connections. We know the connections are going to be made. This is one timeline. This is one linear saga. Like, everything is tied into what we've seen on the big screen. So, you know, how these connections are made, how close they are, or, you know, how directly they tie into the saga, we'll see. But we know those connections will be made. Let's get back to the comments. What do you think the Common Ground title? So I believe Common Ground is an analogy to a lot of what happened, not only between the Bad Batch and the senator who was a separatist leader, and them having to find common ground on their differences, being former soldiers of the Republic and a former separatist, but also between Sid and Omega and Hunter. Common ground was found between all of these characters. Common ground between Sid and Omega. Sid finally having, you know, a respect for Omega and her understanding what her abilities are, and, you know, using that to her advantage, but also to the advantage of the Bad Batch. Because, you know, in the episode, the wager initially, what she offered her 30% of the cut, and then Omega said 60, and then she agreed to it because she saw that she's very capable as a strategist, and she could probably best anybody that she was able to bring into the store, the shop, the bar, whatever that is, the hideout. She was very confident that she could beat anyone that she brought in there. And then, of course, Hunter and Omega. Hunter now seeing, because of what Omega was able to do, beating everyone, and then also paying off their debt, understanding her importance to the team. So finding common ground there. I think those are all of the, it's like almost like a triple entendre, if you will. What will be the Devil's Deal? Devil's Deal, is that a leak title? I mean, let's see, Devil's Deal. Something will have to be made. I need more detail on that, on the Devil's Deal. I don't know if that's an upcoming title. In the finale, but we'll see a cool cameo, probably Clone Wars later. Yeah, definitely. I think the cameo if we see a cameo, we'll be setting up anything coming in season 2. That's for sure. But I believe we should see, at least my prediction is that closer tie-ins to the rebel cells and to the partisans. Maybe some key characters. Maybe we see Mon Mothma or Bail Organa or someone like that. Something that would indicate that this, these operations, these missions that they're doing, this resistance that is forming to Imperial occupation is going to become something. Whether or not that comes to fruition before the season's over, or if that's going to set up something for season 2, or possibly setting up something for Andor, who knows? But I think it's safe to say that the rebellion is going to be a very key part of this story going forward. Cameos are cool, but I want them to pay off more than just a flyby. I agree with that. And you know, they've been really good about those cameos, especially with key characters. They always pay off. They always come back full circle, even if it's not immediate. Like, that's my whole thing with this Saul Guerrero appearance and Rex, and also to a lesser extent Caleb Dune. Like, somehow, some way, all of that's going to pay off. Not in this season, but it's definitely a longer game, especially with Caleb. I don't think we'll see Caleb anytime soon. Definitely not in this season. But it's possible that, you know, that could set up us seeing Hera, or some other characters from Rebels. It could also set up, you know, maybe we will see Sham Sandula at some point. Like, that wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility, seeing Sham pop up in this show. Maybe that would be the cameo at the end of the season. Who knows? Next week's title. Okay. That would be interesting. So that might be, so, you know, every time they have one of these titles, right, it has multiple meanings. So I think, you know, Sid is a possible player in that they could set up some sort of deal with Sid that, you know, would have some underlying complications. It's possible that maybe, I don't know, maybe we see some more Rampart pop in. I don't think we'll see Tarkin again, but it's possible that could be a deal between Imperials and the Bad Batch. Maybe it has something to do with Omega. Possibly Crosshair could be involved. I think, you know, who or whatever it is, it's Imperials, it's Sid, and it has to do with Omega. That's as speculative as I can get at the moment. Mark, what do you think about the idea Omega plays out as Thrawn's eventual strategic nemesis? It's very possible that could be something, or it's possible that she could find herself helping Thrawn in some capacity. I don't know how that's tricky, you know, like, given the time period of everything. From the Thrawn novels, that first trilogy that came out in the first Thrawn Disney era trilogy, there's not much wiggle room for that to happen while he's rising through the ranks, which also doesn't leave much room for it to happen during Rebels, because they pretty much cover a lot of his career at that point. Now, if something happens to where Omega, the Bad Batch, Thrawn, and Ezra all end up in the unknown regions near Chiss space at the same time, yeah, there's possibilities there. I think I think Omega is going to be more so helpful for Boba, in setting up that show. Like, I feel like she's more integral to him than Thrawn. I think everybody and all the key players for Thrawn have already been put into play, and I think the Grisk and the leader of the Grisk form are that opposing strategic nemesis to Thrawn, more so than Omega is. But I think that Omega would be a valuable asset to Thrawn or to anyone during that time period. But I think that we'll see Omega and possibly Boba Fett probably interact more so than her interacting with Thrawn. All right, I'm gonna go 5 more minutes. Yeah, let me see. Any more questions in here? Kendall, what's happening? Good to see you, man. Mace's Star Wars rumor version from Mephisto. Yeah, that Mace Windu cameo's been happening. Rumor. Well, do you remember Rom Coda from what was it? Force Unleashed? I could see if they bring back Mace, right? And it happens in this time period, I could totally see him being a Rom Coda type, where he kind of fits the bill, right? Like the way they wrote Rom Coda and the way Mace is naturally, like they're kind of sort of the same character. So it could be interesting to see him help the Alliance, help Saul, because for sure Mace and Saul, I think, would get along real well. Also, speaking of Mace Windu, I've had a theory that if they bring back Mara Jade, I think it would be cool. You bring in Mara Jade and Mace, and you make Mara Jade Mace Windu's apprentice, and that would kind of set up the animosity towards the Skywalkers and the Skywalker lineage. But of course, Mace wouldn't know about Luke and Leia. That would still be a secret to him. But I could see them setting up a character like Amara Jade and him being her master, and then let's say Vader and Mace have a face-off and Vader beats Mace. Then that could set up some interesting things as far as Mara and Luke interacting later in the timeline. Possibly, that'd be kind of cool. At least I think. Nah, I don't think we're going to get Boba and Mace anymore. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, if anything, we'll get Mace, we'll get Boba and Cad Bane. We'll definitely get that face off. But hey, okay, season in cameo tease. Maybe it's Mace Windu. Who knows? Maybe it's Mace. What if we get Jar Jar back in the series? They kind of really did Jar Jar dirty in the Aftermath series. So, I don't think that's likely because, unless they're going to retcon that, which I wouldn't mind. I didn't agree with how they, I know Jar Jar, there's mixed feelings about Jar Jar as a character. I don't mind Jar Jar. I was a kid when almost said The Force Awakens, but Phantom Menace came out. I was a fan of Jar Jar. I love Jar Jar, but I was a kid, and that's who Jar Jar was designed for, kids. So, yeah. But I would be down for Jar Jar being a member of the Delegation of 2000 and helping in some capacity. I think it would make sense. I think that he would do it because he would be honoring the legacy of Padme, and I feel like it almost makes sense that he would be one of these founding members of the rebellion. I think that's a cool send off for the character. Like, he doesn't have to do anything heroic beyond that. Like, just him doing what he can to throw support behind the Alliance, maybe recruiting Gungans to the Alliance. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I could totally see them using Jar Jar if they want to do it in that capacity. I think it's past time that the Star Wars franchise do something for that character that would be a little noble. Yeah, I mean, he's there for kids, man. Like, children love Jar Jar Binks. That's what the character was there for. I think it was almost an overreaction. Well, no, it wasn't almost. It was definitely an overreaction to the character. Even I watch it now, and it still's not like, yeah, he's goofy, but it's not like, it never takes me out of it. He's just a goofy character, and it's, I think Dave Filoni explained the importance of his character very well in an interview, and I totally agree. But no, you know what? The Gungans would make excellent soldiers for the Rebel Alliance, especially early on. Like, now they could, it's possible that something could happen and maybe the Empire goes to Naboo first, and like the Gungans are the first one they wipe out. Who knows? But I don't think I think Palpatine would respect the military prowess of the Gungans and would want to snuff that out early, because you can't take them for granted. Yeah, we don't get enough Naboo. We don't get enough Alderaan either, and I hope that we see a lot of Alderaan in the Andor series. Maybe we can go to Alderaan in the Bad Batch. Who knows? But this is it. This is all I'm going to do for this episode. Thank you all for joining. 10 a.m. stream, pretty successful. You know, I think we're about our viewership average. But yeah, man, definitely I will be back at my 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time stream review for next week for episode 11. So make sure, if you aren't subscribed, do subscribe to this channel. I will be doing the rest of the Bad Batch series every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also do other content here on this channel. Our main show, The Cookout, will be every Tuesday. It's moved from Saturday to Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's where we pick up, just different topics that we want to talk about. And then we also have a Marvel show where we are reviewing Loki. So we only got 2 more episodes of that, but that is every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on this channel. So make sure you're tuning in if you're watching Loki. If you want to see our reviews and recaps of, those episodes, those are live on the channel. And every episode thus far of the Bad Batch is also up on the channel. But we would appreciate it if you all go back and check those out if you have not yet. And I cannot wait to see you next week. As I always say, there we go. Peace, love, blessings, and may the Force be with you always.